Very welcome, everybody. My name is Pierre Yinbog from Engineer Zion, and I welcome you to today's webinar and panel discussion to celebrate International Women in Engineering Day 2022. So obviously, congratulations, everybody, and happy International Women in Engineering Day, and a lovely day to celebrate it. And hopefully we can enjoy today's kind of lunchtime or afternoon, whichever part of the world maybe you're watching this in, and hopefully you'll enjoy today's conversation. So in this webinar, as part of the team of International Women's in Engineering Day 2022, the team is Inventors and Innovators. And in this webinar, we'll have discussed not only just inventions in their, I guess, literal sense, but also discuss about, inventing yourself and, being innovative in your own personal brand, which I think is very important in any engineer, but especially probably most in female engineers. So we'll definitely delve into that with our speakers. But before I introduce our speakers, just to let you know that today's discussion, I'll be emceeing and hosting it with a few questions to discuss with the panelists and have that conversation around the team. And then I'll invite you all to submit your questions for Q&A at the end, but feel free to drop into a chat or in the Q&A function in here, and I'll get to it at the end. But without any further ado, I'd like to welcome our two speakers. So Teresa Askins and Stephanie Quinn from Johnson & Johnson Vision Care, who are joining us today to speak. So I'll briefly first introduce Stephanie Quinn. So she has been with Johnson & Johnson Vision Care for over 17 years and has extensive quality management systems and process experience across the quality organization in variety of roles and of increasing responsibility. Stephanie has responsibility for the site's medical device, combination product, and intraocular lens quality system. So I'd definitely love to hear more about all of that later on. And then our second speaker is Teresa Askins. She's the business unit quality senior manager, also with Johnson & Johnson Vision Care. She joined the team as a senior quality engineer and then progressed to principal engineer prior to her current role. She manages 3 departments or technologies, has been in her current role for over 3 years, and drives CIP and innovation within the quality department, which center on improving customers' experience. So that's just a short intro on the two speakers, but I'll let them further introduce themselves. So starting firstly, very welcome Stephanie and Teresa, but starting with you, Stephanie, if you want to further introduce yourself and maybe give a background to like how you started in engineering, where do you study, and what brought you to Johnson & Johnson Vision Care?
I will indeed. Thank you so much. So yes, I've been in vision care for 17 years. I'm currently working as the quality system manager with responsibility for medical device, combination products, and intraocular lens quality systems. So where it all started then, I have a degree in chemical instrumentation with analytical methods. So when I came out of college, I was really interested, in working with an established multinational company. I did my research at the time, and J&J was at the top of the list. We'll say because of that particular degree, I applied in for a quality role tech. And then since then, I've been given multiple opportunities by J&J. And as you said, I've gained extensive quality management system, whether, on the systems, but also from a process perspective. This is a highly automated lines that we have here. I've largely worked in the quality organizations, but it's been in a variety of roles with increasing responsibility. So different roles, different responsibilities. Some examples then, I was a quality or compliance specialist. So that's where I really learned about, the regulations associated with a medical device. I worked then as a quality engineering lead. And I'll tell you, we'll talk a little bit about innovation later on, and I'll tell you what I did in that role associated with innovation. I've worked as a principal quality engineer, and as we just said, I'm currently working as a quality system manager. So how did I move between roles? Well, firstly, I suppose I was always encouraged to set, personal development goals. And one of those during my time here was I was, packed off to college. to do my master's, and that was in pharmaceutical validation. And again, that'll tie into, you know, what led me down what I'm going to speak about when I talk about innovation later on. And secondly, like, our company really encourages, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I was hugely supported by the site's ERG, but in particular the Women in Leadership group. So here, you know, you meet like-minded people, maybe with the same challenges, and I was really supported from that perspective. So that's just a little bit about me and my career. So yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, perfect. No, thank you. That's
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
the areas, definitely, and it's great that you already point out some things that we'll delve into later on. So definitely want to hear more about that. And then over to yourself, Teresa. Similarly, also, like, yeah, how did you starting off in engineering, and yeah, how did you get into Johnson & Johnson? Did you care?
So I suppose I came to engineering after I did a previous degree. When I left school, you know, I was young leaving school. I was 17, unsure of what I wanted to do, right? So I went into supervisory management, right? As my mother said, I was always very good at giving orders, right? So I moved then, and I did that for a few years. I did my degree and I moved out of that. I did it for a few years, and then I was looking for something different. I didn't find it very challenging, right? So there was a company opened up where I was living. It was a I don't know if any of you know it. It was called Seagate. We used to make hard disk drives. And I started working there, and I started doing an engineering degree then with them, right? They promoted it. So it was electronic engineering, of course, like to suit that business, right? So unfortunately, that company shut down, but they paid and they promoted for all of us to complete our degree. All right, so I completed my degree, and then I moved into a medical device company in the same locality, actually in the same building, all right, Guidant, and we were making medical devices, implantable medical devices, pacemakers and defibrillators, right? Joined there as a technician role, similar to Stephanie, right? And progressed then into engineering. So would have been part of setting up MPIs. Everything was new at that stage. Would have introduced all the products. We diversified then into catheters. So we brought another aspect of the business in there. So in that role, then I really understood the full, you know, from start to finish, right? So really getting, you know, an MPI in, and then the other side of us getting feedback then from the patients, right? You can imagine the cost of a implantable device, you know, for one implantable device, high cost. And obviously if there was an issue then with the patient, you know, it's an extensive procedure then to remove it at that time, right? Not so much now, thank God, you know, but it would have been, you know, and every single complaint then you would have investigated and the whole lot. So I moved into that side of the business and more into the R&D side of the business then at that stage. All right. I left there then and I worked for a few years. So I would have been doing an awful lot of the quality aspects that I do in this role, in that role, right? We would have been generating our qualification documentation. We would have been executing them. We would have been verifying, you know, doing regulatory submissions, procedure updates, all that kind of stuff associated with the project. All right. And then when I moved then into J&J, right, you can see the different side of it. So here, a lot of the functions that we would have completed in engineering there are completed in quality here, you know. So I came in here as a quality engineer. I was looking after a business down the road, which we've actually changed over into a new product since, right? And I was looking after closing down that aspect of it and also improving, working on CIPs and innovation then. I joined J&J as a contractor, right? I suppose, you know, it's a good way to come into a business to kind of understand the business first and make sure it's a good fit for you, you know. I progressed then into a senior quality role. I progressed then into a principal role, and now I'm in business unit quality. And as Pierre said there, I look after 3 departments, and the departments then are really 2 different manufacturing technologies and customer complaints then for the site as well. So as Stephanie touched on there, right, we have a highly automated manufacturing site here. We make contact lenses. They're a medical device. They're a class 3 in the majority of the regions that we supply to. A lot of it would be the Asia Pac regions and Europe then as well, right? We also supply some lenses into the US and Canada, and we've newly launched one of our contact lenses. It's actually a combination one, which Stephanie was highly involved in Canada as well, and in Japan, right? We launch new products every year, right? So we're constantly going through a process of improvement, seeing what works, what doesn't work, changing our process, updating it and improving it, so that the customer experience is improved with each new product launch, right? We work very closely then with our sister plant in Jacksonville, right, in the US. And like, you know, we frequently travel over and back. I've traveled, I have to say, I've traveled to a lot of regions then to speak to customers, to get feedback then from the regions that we supply there then as well. So we have marketing authorized holders around the world, and they're our supplier, and we supply into them, and then they supply into that region then as well. So it's a great network, right? It really is, you know, and it's great to get that different perspective then as well, and that different perspective helps us and improves our own perception on what we need to do, how we need to improve, and it also it helps us to learn then as well, you know. As Stephanie touched on, then we have the WLI program, Women in Leadership, right? We work with universities, colleges, ITs across the country, and we have a mentorship program, all right? So a lot of new engineers coming in, a lot of new technicians coming in. You know, I would have been a mentee to a lot of those. And what we do then is we try and pair up people who, you know, are looking for a specific skill set that somebody might have, and we kind of go through that process, right? We do it then with our Jacksonville site, but we also have Campus Ireland, right? So J&J, as you probably know, is a big company, right? And we work together in Ireland, all the companies, and we get together. We look at, you know, different opportunities, different, you know, ERGs, as Stephanie touched on with the WLI, but we also have, you know, Open and Out, we have ADA, we have fantastic sporting committees. I have to say there's probably no sport that we don't cover, to be honest, right? Sports committee and things like that as well. And there's literally an event on here nearly every month, right? That we all get involved in, and that also promotes very, very strong community, you know, engagement then as well, within this area and within Campus Ireland then as well, right? But I have to say though, from a career perspective, J&J is very good at giving back to people, right? In that we, you know, our education, as Stephanie touched on there, our education program, our actual development then itself, right? Where they have a development program, you know, at your first year, at your second year, third year, you know, so that you yourself are improving, you're gaining new skill sets, whether it's in a technical aspect or it's in a coaching aspect for yourself, for your career. So I think I have to say, you know, I find them very unique in that respect. All right.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Teresa. You gave even a brilliant overview of even Johnson & Johnson in terms of all the activities. I wear contact lenses, so I'm probably are wearing one of yours. So yeah, I guess it's fantastic to hear. I guess the continuing innovation and every aspect of it. And I'm sure you've probably great the opportunity to travel once again post lockdown, and I'm sure there'll be more of that to continue. So yeah, thanks for giving that overview of Johnson & Johnson Vision Care. So I'll move it back to you, Steffi. So I guess you touched on the word of, I guess, innovation. So yeah, kind of hear more about in terms of like, yeah, what kind of innovative things you've worked on, or what other kind of innovative things that Johnson & Johnson do.
Oh
At the
yeah,
moment.
yeah, no bother. We'll say from J&J's point of view, they really pride themselves on innovation, and you know, we're all really encouraged to come up with innovative solutions. You know, sometimes it's in your day-to-day work and it might be streamlining a process. And others, it could be, you know, you could be assigned to a project to improve, you know, our customer health. Like, you know, it goes from those two extremes, but we're always encouraged, you know, to come up with innovative solutions. And just an example of that from my perspective, we'll say, I mentioned earlier, I was the quality lead, quality engineering lead. So I worked on a team, we'll say, that delivered the world's first drug-eluting contact lens. So this is Acuvue Terravision. It's on the market. We'll say it's in Japan and Canada at the moment. It'll be coming to Europe. But basically what it does is it treats customers that suffer from allergies. And very simply, how it works is the lens absorbs the drug and it's dispensed through the eye over certain periods of time. And as I mentioned, that was the world's first. You know, so that was a really exciting project. You know, my role in that was to deliver a quality system that met the combination product regulations, okay, and provide that day-to-day support with different engineering functions. So it's still a highly automated process. You know, the drug is it's got different rules when it comes to compliance. So there's a lot of you know, us working with, you know, the mechanical engineers, the automation engineers, the process engineers, and helping, you know, to solve problems and all of that. So that was a really exciting project from our perspective.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and it's great that I'm sure there's a lot of component in terms of working, I guess, with the different kind of engineers and different people to kind of come up
you're
with those.
always exactly. You're always building networks, and you know, it was a difference. I had, up until then, I had worked up in our main medical device site. So that's, we deliver, you know, different types of contact lenses, but mainly daily disposables and extended wear. And then they came up with this innovative solution, you know, that our customer needed, you know, to solve allergies, you know, and it was a really, you know, innovative solution to that, you know, for people who have allergies. So yeah, and you're able then, by moving to the new factory, it was, I gained, you know, new networking partners, and you know, it was extremely exciting. You know, it was an excellent project.
Perfect. No, thank you for sharing that, Stephanie. So yeah, hearing more, I guess, from you and now, Teresa, in terms of you giving that introduction about Johnson & Johnson Vision Care, and then also about like career opportunities. So yeah, hearing about all the great, fantastic work you're doing and innovative stuff. So someone might be interested to consider working there one day. So yeah, you want to share more about like the career opportunities that you have, maybe what you would look for in a candidate, and yeah, about maybe the progression opportunities there also, if you want to touch on that too.
Yeah. And like that as well, right? As I said, right, there are always opportunities, right? As Stephanie touched on there, right? So that was a new project. So we hired a full team for that, right? And then Stephanie's role then, so Stephanie moved to another role. So obviously her role was free then and stuff like that, right? So there was a lot of backfilling current J&J roles. And then there was a lot of backfilling then, you know, required then a lot of, you know, it was, I have to say, engineering, software engineering, quality engineering. Those three key roles are key in J&J to delivering any project. All right. So what we would do then is we would look for a candidate who was, okay, may have some medical device experience or pharmaceutical experience, or actually you may have automotive experience in the med device area. You know, looking for someone with some experience for the senior roles, right? And the experience you're looking for is somebody who either has, you know, some level of project deliverables completed, would have gone through the process of root cause investigations, CAPAs, understand the non-conformance world, and obviously understand the regulations that a medical device has to be manufactured to. Right. And obviously not everybody is going to have all of those requirements, right? Not everybody is going to be able to walk in the door and 100% complete a role. So there's a full training process, a full training package then that is planned out in different stages then for each individual, right? So really when you're interviewing candidates for J&J, you're looking for somebody who has the right attitude. We have a very, very strong credo here in J&J. We look to our first responsibility, right, is to our customers, our patients, okay, and then stakeholders, employees, right, and everything that we do then has to meet that credo requirement, right? So like that, you're looking for somebody who has a strong credo, who also then is somebody who, you know, is in that space where comes up with ideas, is interested in progressing the business, is interested in medical devices then as well, and is also, you know, somebody who really, really wants to, you know, progress in their career, right? So we have a graduate program, right? We have where we get together, you know, you apply through the website. I'm sure Lisa's going to send it out there. So that graduate, you apply, there's interviews, there's kind of live sessions then associated with it, live kind of interviews with groups and things like that, different scenarios provided, and that's one forum, right? A lot of the graduates that we've taken on are still here, right? I promoted one of them 2 weeks ago to a team leader role, right? Which is fantastic to see. It's somebody that I was involved in bringing into the business at the time, interviewed him, and is now a team leader. So it's fantastic to see that within those few years, right? So that's one avenue. The other avenue is then you apply. Lisa's going to send out the link to that, and really what it is, it's interview prep, really, you know, the traditional interview prep, but it's really, you know, understanding the credo, the medical devices, what's required from a medical device, what are the deliverables, right? It's the same if you're looking at software engineering, it's the same if you're looking at manufacturing engineering. All right. You know, somebody who can deliver and somebody who's seen to deliver. And if you're just out of college, right, you're applying for a role, right, you know, I have to say I've interviewed a lot of people, and really, you know, to be open and honest, to give that transparency, to make sure that, you know, you're putting your, you know, when you're in an interview, you need to be able to talk about yourself, right? You know, you need to be able to, you know, put yourself forward. Okay, if you're only coming out of college, you may not have much experience, but you would have gained some experience through projects that you've done in college and things like that then as well. So that's that. You may forget about that, but that's all experience. All right.
Yeah. That's fantastic. No, thanks for sharing that. It's good insight to kind of what you are looking for. And kind of, I know sometimes, I guess, applicants are kind of not sure what it is that they should be applying for and like how they present themselves. So maybe on that point then, Stephanie, you've had extensive experience over the years, and I guess you probably worked on trying to present yourself best for interviews or promotion opportunities or everything like that. So yeah, I guess on the team of being an innovator, I guess more in terms of yourself as a brand.
Yeah,
so,
as a brand, is it? Yeah, sorry,
yeah,
go
so
on.
how have you yourself over the time, or kind of any advice you can give to any prospective maybe applicants for Johnson & Johnson, or just any engineer in general, especially now in the space of, you know, social media and the internet? Like, how do you build your brand both as a person and also in a professional way to show your best side for any kind of opportunities out there?
Yeah, I suppose look at when it comes to personal branding, it's really important, I would say, you know, to be true to yourself. You know, make sure, and what I mean by that is that your actions match your branding. Okay. You know, I've branded myself as a problem solver. You know, I love to work with new customer solutions. I'm dynamic across the quality space. You know, I seek a challenge, you know, good energy, positive attitude. And that matches, we'll say, you know, the experience that I have to date, you know. So you know, even, you know, all my connections that I've built internally and externally. And it's about, you know, presenting that as a brand to them. So like what I would say, you know, and certainly from a professional side is, you know, match what, you know, what, be true to yourself. You know, you can't, you know, brand yourself up as something that you're not, because as soon, you know, as soon as people know you and start working on teams, if you say you're X, Y, and Z and you're A, B, and C, it'll come out. Like, so really key, you know, be true to yourself and make sure your actions match your branding from that perspective. I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. No, thanks. And that's very important, especially in this day and age. Yeah, just be true to yourself as much as possible, because that'll really
And yeah,
shine out.
isn't it hard in today's world with, you know, all the social media and, you know, what people, you know, foresee as, you know, reality when it's not, it's virtual. So that's, you know, you can advertise yourself as X, but if you're not X when people come to meet you, then that'll become, you know, obvious. So it's really important. Yeah. True to yourself.
Yeah, that's very true. Thanks, Stephanie. And similarly, yeah, Teresa, maybe in terms of in terms of promoting to leadership roles, like obviously almost in a way makes you change in a person, especially now that in a leadership role you have management over people. So yeah, how do you stay true to yourself, but also make sure that you fit the role in terms of that responsibility? Yeah.
Yeah, so it is very important, as Stephanie said, to be true to yourself, right? So really, you always have to put yourself into that other person's shoes, right? You know, everybody has their own perspective on things, and sometimes it's just the way that somebody comes across. Sometimes, because they think that that's the correct, you know, the correct way that things get done and things like that, right? So a lot of it is just, you know, understanding business practices, right? And that's something that we have discussions on very early on in people's careers, right? Business practices, acceptable, not acceptable, and obviously, as I said, the credo earlier, right, is kind of is our guiding light there. You know, it's really important that people understand that working in any environment, right, you know, being respectful, being honest, being open is very key. And everything else then, right, we're a business, right? We have to, obviously, you know, we make contact lenses, so the business is to deliver contact lenses, right? So everything else then, you work as a team, right? We don't work in silos. Very rare that you work in a silo, right? Everybody works, we have a cross matrix environment, right? Quality engineering, we work in a value stream kind of setting, and we work very closely in partnership to deliver on our goals, right? There's shared goals across the business. Everybody pulls their weight, and that's really it. You know, you have to make sure that you can pull your weight, and if things don't go to plan, you know, not everything goes to plan, guys. You know, that's one thing that you learn in business, right? In your career, you'll find that out. Not everything goes to plan, right? And a lot of it is, you know, this is your role, right? This is your career, right? You have to be passionate about your job and, you know, whatever innovation you're doing, right? I'll just give you an example there, right? We struggled about 5 years ago to improve on a vision system, right? We wanted to automate some of our in-process inspections, okay? And as a business, we struggled to deliver on that about 5 years ago. But in the last 2 years, we've been able to, looking at new technology, right? Artificial intelligence, right? Being able to implement a vision system across our manufacturing platform in the last 2 years, because we didn't see that initial failure as, oh, that's closed. We saw it as, okay, we need to look at this in a different way, you know. And sometimes you got to do that for yourself as well. You know, you got to look at things in a different way and kind of keep on thinking and questioning yourself. Is this what I want? Is this me? Is it true to myself, as Stephanie said? But also, is this where I want to go? And all, you know, as I said, the mentee program is there. The mentor program is there, and it's not just with WLI, it is throughout the business. And you know, if you don't have a mentor, there are always your manager or anyone else who can help you in those type of scenarios if you're struggling. Like we have an awful lot, like we've gone through a very tough couple of years there. We're all so used to Zoom at this stage, you know, and I suppose it's been hard. A lot of people have been in isolation, so it is great to have that community within J&J to be able to say yes. And I have to say, from a deliverable and an innovation, it didn't stop through COVID for us, right? It was delivered, and what we did was we just found different ways to get things delivered, you know, and that's what it is. It's all about that innovation, you know. All right.
That is fun. Yeah, that is true. It is very much, especially we had to learn it too here in Engineers Ireland, but it's great that everybody had to face the facts that things had to be different, or you have to change your processes. So you just have to embrace it. And yeah, it's also as yourself. So if anybody do want to ask any questions to the panel, please pop it to the chat. So while you're preparing that, I just have one question for both of you. And you just briefly touched on it there, Teresa. So we'll start with you in terms of mentors. So yeah, in terms of in yourself, do you have any kind of role models that you look up to, or that you've looked up to in terms of who've guided you through your career that you want to share?
Yeah, I suppose I've had a few, right? I will start with my mother, right? Okay, definitely, right? My mother has been fantastic, you know, as a support throughout my whole career, right? You know, and it's very, very, you know, all I can say is, you know, I have 4 children, right? So we have a very close family, and we really work very, you know, if you're working full time, you know, you need that support network. So that's what I would say is, you know, no matter what you're doing, you need that support network. Even if you're not in that type of family environment, you still need it, right? Whether it's friends or whoever, okay? The second thing that I would say is that I've had a few managers, directors over the years, right? But I suppose there's one person who would have been a senior director when I joined J&J, and would have guided me through, you know, some of the pitfalls, right, that you can fall into, and kind of, you know, it's more on the coaching side of it, not from the technical side of it, right? Because on the technical side of it, you know, a lot of people, you know, you're trained, and there's very well structured, right, approaches and, you know, principles that you follow, right? But it's the difficulty is on the kind of emotional intelligence side of it, right? And like that, you really have to, you know, look to someone, right, who you do admire, to be able to help you there, right? Would have gone through some difficult scenarios, would have had some, you know, not so nice issues happen in the market, you know, about 5-6 years ago. And like that again, it was that person who guided us through that, right? And then kind of took on and actually kind of gave me an awful lot of coaching around how to prepare this. And like that again, how to develop those type of relationships when you're not actually meeting those people, and you don't get to meet those people because they're around the world. And I suppose this was at a time we didn't have fantastic technology like Zoom and Teams and things like that. We were on phones calling these people, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, like that. And like I have to say, the technology now has really improved in that, but it's like that, it is building those relationships. So I have to say, you know, from a technical perspective, you know, very strong guidance in industry, but from the emotional intelligence perspective and your coaching, that's you do need to really consider who you need to support you on that aspect of it, right? And to be honest, guys, you know, you always have to think from a manager perspective, right? You always have to be thinking of yourself this time next year, right? You need to think forward, right? You know, as Stephanie was there, Stephanie got the promotion, but she was thinking what she's going to do next, right? You always have to think, you know, what do I want to go for now? Where do I want to be in 2 years' time, right? Because guys, you know, we have a limited time in industry, you know, so you really want to make the most of it for yourself, right? And you also have to make sure you have that balance, work-life balance, because that's really, really important then as well.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it too. And yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's definitely similar for yourself. Yeah, any kind of mentors or role models and inspiration that guided you through your fantastic career so far?
Yeah, look at, you know, you can't, I suppose I'd have, from my career side, I definitely have two key women that I've worked with, but from a personal side, I mean, I would be described, or I'm branded, if you like, as being very resilient. And I've learned that hugely from my sister. You know, she's gone through, you know, different aspects in her life, and you know, I've really learned from her, you know, how to be resilient. I suppose then from a career perspective, then, you know, when I came into the organization, you know, I was very green, you know, and I spoke a little bit about, I worked in a compliance role, and here we really learned, you know, the about the regulations, and obviously that's hugely important when you're working in a regulated environment. But we were taught, you know, different things. You know, sometimes it was hard lessons, and we learned from experience. And as I made my way through my journey, you know, through, you know, I had, you know, my children, I had a hugely supportive manager at that stage who had great confidence in me, and she was a huge you know, influencer to me, you know, to have that confidence in me and to nearly help me shape and develop, you know, my career path. So and both of those on my professional side, both are within J&J and are still here within J&J. And I like to think, as I've moved on through my career, I've adapted, you know, some of the really key things that those two managers have gave me, and so that I can, you know, pass it on to my team now. So yeah, that's my experience as a mentee. I've also been a mentor at different stages as well. You know, I've mentored people in engineering, you know, in mechanical engineering, and sometimes, you know, even though I wouldn't have had the experience within, you know, that particular area, you do have common things, you know, when you're looking to develop yourself, and there are some key aspects that we would look at. And one particular guy that I mentored, you know, he had come up through the program, and he just needed a little bit of guidance on, and it was something very simple, like when you're moving up through the ranks, make sure you've somebody following you. So as soon as, you know, it's your time to move, you know, up, that there's somebody following behind you. And it was simple things like that, you know, from a mentee perspective or a mentor perspective. Yeah. So thanks,
Perfect.
Pierre.
No, thanks so much for sharing that. That's great to hear. And it's great that I guess you feel like I guess a responsibility to pay it forward in some ways. But it's great that I shared that. So if there is any question now for the panelists, please add it to the chat. So I'll give you a moment there, but also before we'll close off, there is just one question I'll ask foreign panelists to consider. So yeah, what does International Women in Engineering Day mean for you? So if you want to take a moment there to think about it and share with us what it means to you. So maybe starting with yourself, Teresa.
I think it's very much a celebration, right? It is a celebration of women in engineering, right? Because I suppose when you think of engineers, traditionally you didn't think of women in engineering, okay? The discipline of engineering has changed over a number of years, branched out, right? And even here in this organization, a lot of our senior teams in the engineering space would be women, right? Would be women leaders. And that would be, you know, across the board, injection molding, software, manufacturing, which is fantastic, right? You have to really think, you know, in engineering, right, for women, right? I suppose when you're coming out of college, right, when you're finished doing your leaving cert, right, it wasn't, I suppose when I was younger, it wasn't something that was traditional in that space. But I have to say, it is actually fantastic now to be able to see the amount of engineers that are women, right? And you have to actually think it is fantastic that there is no distinction there anymore, right? It's not women, men, it's engineers, and that's what I think engineering in Ireland has done as well, that that there is no diversity there anymore, right?
Yeah.
There is no seclusion, which I think is fantastic, and that really has to be celebrated.
Yeah, like it isn't that exactly what it is. It's helping, I suppose, to promote diversity in the engineering fields, whether it's these days encouraging girls and young women, to enter the career. Like, so, even, this panel today, to show women and young, young women, all women, that, these, we've had, myself and, or Teresa and I, we've had completely different careers. We're working on the fields where we've been a success in our fields. We've started at different points. It's really to promote the diversity in engineering. That's what it means to me. Yeah.
That's fantastic, and yeah, this is what it's about to celebrate, and and showing that can be done. So yeah, you're fantastic role models for that. So thank you so much. So we have one question here from Siobhan Keane. If either of you want to take, how far ahead in your career do you plan for? Any tips on that? Either of you?
So I suppose
Teresa, yeah?
it's really important, right, to have that plan, right? And look, plans change, right? But you know what you have to think though is, okay, I found something that I'm really passionate about, and that's one key element that you have to think about, right? And then you have to think about, right, where can I facilitate that passion, right? So where can my role go, right? I have to say, once you have the understanding of the business, once you're in an organization like J&J, the diversification and the different roles, right, can change, right? A business can change, the org changes, right? But I suppose if you want to think about it, right, do you want to be a vice president of X, Y, and Z, right? Do you want to be, it's like kids when they're saying, I want to be president someday, that kind of thing. You always have to think, right, so the next step for me would be, let's just say director role, right, for instance, as a manager, right, or senior director or something like that, right? So what would be my plan to get there in the next, let's just say 3 years? Right? So what would I have to have completed realistically in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months, in the next 36 months? And that's what you have to think about, right? When you're planning, you have to have tangible little goals to be able to get there. And I suppose that's how I plan it out in my head, to be honest, right? Does that answer your question, Siobhan? Hope so.
Yeah.
And yourself, yes, Stephanie, how would you plan?
So how far ahead in your career do you plan for? So I suppose this is actually ideal. This is an ideal question. I've just moved into a new role, so it's just like what Teresa was saying. It's almost like you break it down into stages. So I'd be saying, okay, first 6 months, I'm learning this role. I'm learning the people. I'm learning, what objectives are there, what's the outward objectives, the inward object, who's all my customers. And I'm not just talking about the customers that buy the contact lens, but it could be other quality functions, etc. So, and then usually what I've done in the past then is, looking out to maybe 18 months after that, I start positioning myself for my next move. So if I thought, we'll say, for instance, in this, if I was going now for a senior manager's role or, something higher, I would start looking to see, what are the gaps between where I am now and where that senior manager is, loads of ways of doing it. You know, there's observations, but you can actually, and especially here in J&J, you can go to the different senior managers and you can see what your gaps are as well. You know, and we talked about personal branding. There's an element of that as well. So you might have, you know, your plan, and you say in 18 months time now, I'll start identifying the gaps, fill them out, and over the next 6 months or another year, we'll say you're up to 2.5 years, 3 years at this stage, you might start closing those gaps so that when a job comes up, you're ready to roll. But in that time as well, what's hugely important is, and we spoke about, is our personal branding, is nearly to make sure that the other key people within the organization will say, know who you are. It's a huge organization, so there's a lot, you know, personal branding and making sure that different key people know about who is Stephanie Quinn and what can she deliver. So it's twofold: you do the work, but also you tell people you do the work. So, you know, that would be my take on career planning, I suppose, and looking ahead.
I think that's always the biggest difficulty is, like, you can do the work, but you also get to tell people you're doing it.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And yeah, again, I've learned that throughout my career as well. So
yeah, fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much, Stephanie and Teresa. Before I pass it on to my colleague Sinead to close it off, I just want to say thank you personally for joining me today to have a fantastic conversation. Really enjoyed hearing from you and hear more about your career, and I'm sure you have fantastic many years to go forward, and I can't wait to see where your next career takes you. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll pass over now to Sinead.
So sorry, just before you pass to Sinead, I suppose we do have a couple of careers evenings coming up and things like that as well. So look, again, it's a virtual event. You can just, Lisa's going to send on the information there, and it's just a way to, if you're struggling getting through the systems and things like that, it's just a way to get to meet us directly, and it's through Indeed. All right. Thanks a lot, Pierre. Appreciate it.
No, thanks for saying that, Teresa.
Okay, so over to me, I suppose. My name is Sinead, and I work as part of our sector support team, working with our sectors who are retail branches, engineering divisions and societies within Engineers Ireland. So these are a vibrant community of members who are working to promote the profession and organise free CPD events throughout the year. So I would encourage you all to log on to the website, update your preferences, and make sure that you're kept up to date of all the latest events and news for our sectors. And given the day that is in it, I'd like to highlight our Women in Engineering group. This is a committee of volunteers working on promoting the profession, promoting engineering as a profession to young girls, supporting women who are already in the profession and those who have left and are returning to it. So they host a wide range of events, including social events, panel discussions, and these provide a really good networking opportunity for members. So you can find out more about the group on the Engineers Ireland website under the Inclusion and Diversity Society webpage. To close out the event, I would like to give our sincere thanks to Teresa and Stephanie for sharing your experiences and the invaluable advice that you've shared with us today. And also to Lisa and Jessica for your support for this event. I hope that we can collaborate again for more events like this. I see a great future ahead there. I'd also like to thank you, Pierre, for a fantastic job that you've done in the facilitation and the coordination of this event. And I suppose I'll close off with, I want to wish you all a very happy International Women in Engineering Day, and we look forward to seeing you all again at future Engineers Ireland event. Thank you.